So, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Business Owner Spotlight. This interview today is going to be a super exciting one, and I am looking forward to having a conversation and allowing each of you to hear the story of Kyle Woody and his journey as the founder and executive director of Jack's Caregivers. And so today we're going to have a chance to be able to hear how he started and where he is today and where he's going in the future. And my guess is he's got a couple of tips for all of us to be able to understand some of the things that we can do differently in our careers and as business owners to be able to have a shorter learning curve and avoid some pitfalls in our own business. So with that, Kyle, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time today.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you, Marty.
Yeah, appreciate it. Awesome. Well, I guess the big question I've got is hearing more about your story because it seems like there's some personal aspects to it. So where did this journey start, and how did you get to, I guess, where you are today?
Yeah, so I would probably start with my spouse being diagnosed in 2011 with metastatic colon cancer. It
Mm,
was about actually it was the day before Thanksgiving and about um a month and a half after the birth of our second child. And that's like anyone who's been through a diagnosis like that, it changes everything, right? Like my dreams and aspirations in my career no longer mattered. None of that was important. And so fast forward about a year into that journey, some dear friends of ours came. We were living in Virginia at the time. They came from all the way from California to
mm,
spend a week with us. And Sarah and I were very excited to host them and see them. And at the dinner table the first night, we were sharing our plans for their week, what they were going to do, where they were going to go, etc. And they said, well, that's nice, but we're not here for that. We're here to serve you.
mm,
And Marty, they were looking at me. And so I was confused. I said, well, I don't need to be served. I'm fine. Sarah's the one who's facing this disease, and, you need to help her. And they went on to explain, because I was confused, that before they visited, they consulted a dear friend of theirs. His name was Jack. He is who we're named after. I am not Jack. I'm often called Jack. But Jack told them, serve the caregiver. They're always forgotten.
mm.
And so they came to my house, literally showed up at our dinner table, and that was their mission that week. So the whole week, while I'd go to work or running the kids to preschool or taking Sarah to infusion, they were at home knocking out my honeydew list, staining the deck, cleaning the gutters, all the things that I didn't have time to do and frankly didn't care about anymore. The little things, right? And so that was a very meaningful encounter for me. And I was at a conference probably about 6 months later back in California, supposed to be going to all the breakout sessions and doing all the things. And I instead started writing in my hotel room, really reflecting and processing that and everything that led up to that moment. And just became, first of all, I had a complete meltdown because I hadn't allowed myself to feel any of the emotions that all of this crisis brought upon our family. And so then I felt them all in this really sort of catastrophic way. But it taught me, I wanted to find someone to pay this forward to. So I was on a mission to find another caregiver like myself. So in the middle of all this, we moved to Minneapolis, and I found a gentleman who was going through a very similar thing. He worked at Best Buy headquarters. I understand you're from Bloomington, Marty, so you know where that is. 494 right across the highway, a place called Lucky 13s, is where we met for the first time. And I was like a weird blind date. Like I didn't know what he looked like. We had met over email. And I had told him this crazy story that I just wanted to stain his deck and clean his gutters and, all of that. And he said, well, I live in a townhome. I don't need any of that. So let's just grab a beer at Lucky 13s. And so we did. And then we did again and again. And we kept meeting monthly. That's what showing up for him looked like. That's what he needed. And
Uh,
then about 8 months into that, we just said, there's a gap here. There's not a community for guys like us. And guys like us are everywhere. So
mm,
what can we do about that? And so that was 2014. And we set off and found our third founder. And sitting here today, 2023, which I'm still trying to reckon with, where we have experienced in the last couple of years pretty extraordinary revenue growth, and um, our our the annual report that we just finished for last year is maybe the thing I'm more proud of than any career accomplishment. Um, outside of my family, my kids.
mm.
So it's a it's just privileged work that I get to do. And yeah, so that's kind of it in a nutshell, I think, the journey.
Well, that's fascinating. I mean, the fact that it came from such a really intimate place, right? And I was looking at your LinkedIn profile earlier, and it's you kind of think about guys, right? Guys aren't really the best at kind of getting into this space. But I can appreciate it. I've had personally had considerable health challenges most of my life, and my wife has been just a trooper. And people would always ask me, at church or wherever we were, "How you doing? How's Marty doing?" And I'm like, talk to her because she's the one cleaning up the mess, right? I mean, or having to deal with the side of it. So so we were very intentional in reaching out to you because of the work that you're doing for people and really how it ripples effects into the community. But can you talk to us a little bit about and if you don't feel comfortable with this, that's fine. But the business model, right? I mean, because it's a business, right? I mean, you have to generate revenue if you're going to help more people and those types of things. But what does it look like for a person that wants to be a part of this, or how would you explain that to somebody that doesn't know what Jack's Caregiver Coalition is all about?
Yeah, I would tell them the mission statement, the vision statements, these words that guide every activity. And business model, I don't we're 501c3 non-profit, which does not mean for loss.
Yeah.
It's a business, right? Like any other. And I think I don't think of myself as a business owner. Um, it's owned by the community, right? Like we of course seek profit because that makes us stronger. That gives us the ability to do more, make a bigger impact. But it isn't about me, other than I'm the principal leader. I'm the direction setter, the visionary. That's my role. Um, but the nonprofit model fundraising, we have two bottom lines. We have the impact on the community. How do we demonstrate that we are making traction on our mission, right? Like our mission is to improve the way guys think, feel, and act through every phase of their caregiving journey. So people invest in us with donations, with membership support, with sponsorship support. And the return that they expect on that investment is not monetary. They expect a community impact. And so our job is to communicate, demonstrate, and share that impact, measure it, evaluate what we do, and is it working? And like all entrepreneurial startup businesses, for many years, it wasn't working. We didn't know what we were doing. We knew what we wanted to do and what we wanted to accomplish, but we didn't know how. And no one ever had. So there wasn't a playbook. So we, to the extent that we had a playbook, it was lean startup. I came from an operational excellence background in my corporate career. So, creating these small experiments and reflecting, did it work? And it works just as well in the nonprofit sector as it does in the for-profit sector. And so I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's how I would explain our business model.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good. It's really thorough and easy to understand too. And I like the way you were able to capture this idea of kind of your corporate career and how that you've been able to translate or transfer some of those skills into a nonprofit, right? Because that can be a very difficult and challenging thing for anybody. But it sounds like you've done it pretty successfully. So where do you see then? You mentioned that, one of your many roles, I'm sure, is the visionary. And so tell us a little bit about where you see the journey taking you over the next, say, 5 years or 10 years, depending on how far you've kind of cast that vision. What can you share with us about that?
Yeah, so probably like a lot of business leaders, I've over the my career just keep shrinking down my planning horizon and my vision casting. Uh, and throughout COVID and dealing with in a business that is fundamentally about connecting people,
Hmm.
prior to COVID in person, that had that taken away from us, we had to just radically rethink and pivot in a dozen directions. And so I'm just sort of shrinking that um, time horizon down. Um, but the long version, or the vision, is a world where guide caregivers never feel alone.
Hmm.
And so that's the whole world. That's not Minnesota or Minneapolis. That's obviously bigger than us. We need a lot of help. We need partners. We need allies. We need sponsors, investors, all of it. But that's where we're headed. And so, how are we going to get there? Currently, our approach is, we're in the Twin Cities metro. Rather than popping over to Chicago or Atlanta, big urban, dense environments that where we see a lot of opportunity, um, we're we're choosing to go deeper here in the Twin Cities metro. So we're starting a chapter approach. We've just kicked off what we're not even sure what we're calling it, but for now, the North Side. So think of how Chicago has the South Side, and people. There's a culture there. They're different than folks on the North Side.
Yeah.
We're creating these chapters here locally, and hopefully that'll teach us how do we go to a bigger urban area and not only serve that area, but all the outskirts. The St. Clouds, the Mankato's, the Duluths. How do we show up for all of those spaces? Um, and that's virtual, that's in person. There's a lot of ways. So that's kind of where it's at for now. And then just following the success. Retire the things that aren't working, the things that aren't moving the needle, and invest more in the things that are.
That's I can see where the strategy, right, the strategic kind of visionary piece, but combined with some of the tactical aspects of what you were describing. I love that, going deeper in the Twin Cities. And I guess kind of what I hear, my own interpretation of some of the things that you've said, is this community that you're building. And it really makes it feel, especially as you describe the chapters, like there's a not just a community element to it, but to me it feels a little more comfortable, almost small town in a big city kind of thing, right? Where people would come together to help somebody that that, just got out of the hospital from a accident or something. My family comes from rural Minnesota, so I can kind of speak to that. But it just seems like there's that real desire to be able to help people in very what I would consider kind of a small town way. I don't mean to put that label on you, but that to me it speaks to my heart. So
Yeah, I would I wouldn't disagree. We're not the the hero in the story. We're just the guide, and we're trying to help these people find each other, because that's the thing. They're all over the place and they just don't know, because there's not a hat that says, "Oh, Marty's wife is a caregiver," right? She's just Marty's wife as far as everyone knows. So how do we help these people be seen, find each other, support each other, and us just get out of the way, um, do our part, and get out of the way. And we're looking at it as like we want it to be in everybody's backyard. We don't want someone to have to fly from California to Virginia to help someone out. Their neighbor 3 doors down would probably love that opportunity if they have the margin and the capacity to do it. So that's the opportunity in front of us, is just to connect the dots.
yeah, and they have to know that there's a need 3 doors down too, right? I mean, my fourth granddaughter was just born just last week, and one of the mothers of a friend was like, I hadn't seen you in a while. And speaking to my daughter-in-law, and she goes, "Well, how long has it been?" She goes, "Well, it's been about 8 or 9 months." She's like, "Yeah, well, I was pregnant during that whole time." So it was kind of, they didn't know, and they really didn't live too far apart. So it's that whole awareness piece as well. But well, I know we have some limited time here, but so great story and journey that you're on, and it sounds like there's not an end point here. It sounds like it's just going to continue to grow and get deeper into the community and helping more people. But is there, you had mentioned some of the bumps, along the way. Is there anything that you feel like would be helpful to share with the audience about what you learned in the process, either specific to the nonprofit space or the business model, or just anything that you think somebody that's watching this might be able to take away from this and say, "Oh, I got to make sure I don't do that or do more of something else."
Yeah, there's a lot, right? There's but if I pick one thing that I think, had I known it sooner, um that rises above all the rest, is that the power of gratitude,
Mm,
and that it is free. It is powerful. It changes everything for people. The people that work for you, just when they walk out the door, saying, "You did a great job today. I'm so grateful for your help." Um, I tell you what, you can't put a number on that.
mm,
Your boss making you feel valued. The investors, before this call, I was scribbling thank you notes to donors for the last hour and a half.
mm,
And that's quiet, solitary work, that there isn't a short-term return on, right? I don't send that thank you note and get a donation. I send that
mm,
thank you note because we got a donation.
mhm.
And building relationships with people through gratitude is something that I don't know how I got into this business not having any clue about the power of gratitude. But it's maybe the thing that I just, if I think about one thing every single day, it's who am I grateful for, and how am I going to tell them in a meaningful way, not, and screw this efficiency stuff. Like, well, we got to automate some response in our Outlook system. No, that's not gratitude.
Yeah.
You what I do, handwritten notes, powerful phone calls, taking time, and it's got to cost you something for it to be meaningful
Mm.
gratitude, I think. um so that's all. The other stuff I think is not as important as that has been for me.
Well, and that's something any one of us can apply to our lives, our personal lives, and certainly our business, the way you just described it. And that is, yeah, it sure cast a different perspective on kind of our day-to-day life and focus on things. So that is fantastic. I appreciate you sharing that. Um, well, good. Well, so Kyle, I think there's going to be a lot of people that may be interested in reaching out to you. Is there a way that they can through your website or LinkedIn? What would be the best for you and for them to be able to learn more?
Yeah, so to learn more, I would send them to our website, jackscaregiverco.org, or just type in Jack's Caregiver Coalition in Google. It'll get you there. We're the only one. And you can call us, you can text us at 612-547-6929. You can drop us an email at contact us at jackscaregiverco.org. And
Mm.
we do our best to, and if you're a social media person, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all the things except Twitter, we're there, and you can engage with us that way too.
Sounds great. Well, what a great journey it's been, and more importantly, what a great way to serve the community and help people and affect people's lives. So, thank you so much for joining us. I'm grateful.
Thank you, Marty.